I'm recording. I will go ahead. Oops, I'm not sharing. I'm going to go ahead and mute all of your lines just while he talks, and then we can unmute with any questions, kind of make a game plan of where we want to be for next week, and then get a little bit of work done. Go ahead.
All right. So the first habit is be proactive. Okay. So instead of, and I've actually had to talk about this with a couple of my kids today, this past 3 days, first 2 days of school, about being proactive instead of being reactive, because it's almost always 9 times out of 10 the person that reacts is the one that gets in trouble. I've had a kid that he reacts to everything however he wants to react to it, and he's like, well, so and so did this first, and then I said, okay, well, exactly, like, you're making my point right now. Like, I didn't see him do it, I saw you react, so now you're the one getting in trouble, when in reality it should be either both of you or just him. So the reactor, so being reactive is not the way that you want to be. You want to be proactive, and kind of being conscious of your actions, and instead of reacting based on your mood, your feeling, your circumstance, or whatever is done to you, pausing and responding based on the way that you should react in that situation, instead of just jumping right out and doing exactly what you think should be done based off of how you feel or what was done to you. And instead of, blaming and accusing and using the victim language of, well, I have to do this, or, this is what has to be done, using proactive language and, thinking of it in terms of, this is what I want to do. Like, these are my choices. I'm making the choices for myself, instead of either being told that I have to do things or feeling like I have to do things. Like, you don't have to wake up every day and be positive and work out and watch what you eat. Like, you don't have to do those things. Those are the things that you choose to do because you want to be healthy and you want to be happy and you want to live the best life for yourself. And not wasting time and energy on things that you can't control. So in the book, it talks about having a circle of concern and a circle of influence. And your circle of concern is things that obviously concern you, like they pertain to you, but they're things that you can't change. You can't control them. But your circle of influence are things that you can change and things that you can control. So it has the circle of concern along the outside, the circle of influence in the middle, and it has arrows on the inside of the circle of influence pointing outward. And what it's trying to say is focus on the things that you can control, your circle of influence, and if you do that, then that circle is going to get larger. And the things that concern you will start to be taken over just by your positive energy, your positive outlook, and the way that you're being proactive about things, instead of focusing on, well, this, that, or the other that you really can't control. That's wasted energy and that's wasted time, where you could be focusing on the things that you can control and that, the things that are in your circle of being able to say, I can control this and I'm going to get better at this. And once you do those things, you make yourself better. And then around you, the people start to be, they start to be lifted up, and brought along with you. And then past any negative patterns, not being so negative, becoming a transition person, in terms of, we're not going to get to where we want to be. Like, there's always something that we need to work on. So you're never really going to get to that area of, I feel 100% content on every single aspect of my life. Like, you're just never going to get there. And if you think that you are, like, let's be real. Like, that's just not, that's not life. So instead of being, passing negative patterns along and if something's done to me, then I'm going to do it to somebody else to be, just negative, because that's just how my life goes. Become a transition person and transition those negative things that are done to you into positives. And then it brings the people around you up. and it starts to transition those people into transition people, and then they start to take their negative habits and turn them into positive things. So just kind of being a positive beam of light to those around you. And I think the best way to describe this habit in a nutshell is when it all kind of like sparked with me in my training for this. Was the lady took a bottle of Coke, and then she took a bottle of water, and she shook them both up like as hard as she could. And she obviously didn't open the bottle of Coke because it would have gone all over. But she said, "Now think of these two things that are in my hands. If I open up this bottle of Coke, what's going to happen? It's going to spew everywhere, all over the place. But what's going to happen to this bottle of water if I open it at the same exact time as this bottle of Coke? Nothing. Okay? Zero, like nothing. It's literally just going to be like you never even shook it up. Okay? So the Coke is the reactive person. The water is the proactive person, all right, that we want to strive to be, obviously. And that's where it all kind of came full circle. And I'm in charge of, well, I was, but me and another teacher, she really did it for me. But we have to teach this lesson to our houses at school on Wednesday. And that's what we're going to use is the Coke and water thing. So, just if that's one little thing that needs to stick in your mind, when you're about to like explode, think, I don't want to be Coke, I want to be water. Like you want to be the most proactive person in thinking about the things that you're going to say or do before you do them. And just being intentional, being intentional with the things that you say, the things that you do, make sure that they are, bringing up and positive instead of always, bringing others down and bringing the people around you down. So, that's really the gist of it. Becoming a transition person, you want to think about the future positive things that are going to be brought because of your actions instead of thinking of the negative, just passing along those negative things instead of I can, instead of it's not my fault, it's I'm sorry, what did I do? Because obviously something was, if you wronged somebody, you did something, so instead of, well, it's not my fault, I'm sorry, well, what did I do? How can I help you? And there's nothing that we can do. Don't think that there's nothing that we can do. There must be something that can be done. Like even if it's minute, it doesn't really fix the problem. There's something that can be done about everything. And just, pausing and being intentional about your responses and what you do. And so in the book, it has application suggestions for every habit at the very end. And so it just says, for a full day, just listen to your language and the way that you talk to the people around you and to yourself, really, and how you think. So how often do you use reactive phrases? How often do you think reactively instead of proactively? And then a couple things that you can focus on just, a day this week or all week until the next time we talk, is just selecting a problem from your work or personal life that is frustrating to you and determine whether it is a direct, indirect, or a no control problem. Identify that first step that you can take to solve it and then take that step and see what happens. For us, I think it will be waking up every morning on our alarm and making sure that we get our workout done before school because we have to now. So that is something that has frustrated the crap out of both of us. And so that's my personal goal for this week is to make sure that we wake up every single day and get our workout done before school. And then that way it's behind us. And then whatever extra time that we have after both of us get home, we can just hang out and not have to worry about that and having to do it when we're exhausted. Is it going to be hard? Yes. But, we're going to identify the first step that we need to take to get there. So I encourage you to do that. Think of something that is just bothers you that you do or don't do and that you know that you should do. and determine whether it's, direct, indirect, or no control. And if you can control it, think of the one thing you can do, the first thing to counteract that and start to spin it back your way. And then just think of, past situations where you might behave or respond reactively, and what can you do or say differently to change the situation in the right direction. So just being intentional, I think, is the biggest takeaway. Being intentional about the way that you speak, the way that you talk, or the way that you think. And for those that are teachers, you have to be intentional with everything that you do, everything that you say, everything that you post. Like, you have to be. But, it's whenever we get away from our kids and away from that environment that we can start to sort of lose focus, or we might need to keep that focus in the right direction whenever we're, not forced to act that way. So that's, in a nutshell, habit one. Like I said, these habits are not going to take a whole lot of time to talk about, just because it's a lot of things that we should just be doing. It's kind of common sense type stuff, but it's not stuff that you think about all the time. You guys have any questions? You guys want to talk? It's kind of open to you now. I've said my piece of how I think and just what I've learned from this, and what I learn every day from, other teachers in my building or kids, because the kids, they actually know this stuff. My kids especially, because my kids, they started this program when mine were in kindergarten. So they've seen it K1, 2, 3, and now 4th. So like, they're the OGs, like the pioneers. So these kids, like, they're yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, like no tomorrow. They got it together. And like I told her multiple times last week, I'm like, it almost makes me uncomfortable, like the way that these kids are. It's just unbelievable. The things that it does to your mind if you think that way. And kids are the best example. The kids are the purest that you can be. And with the exception of our special friends that are just really need our help, for lack of a better word or phrase. But kids are the purest example of people pleasing and wanting to do the right things. And it shows if you do these things and you live by it and you learn it and you really focus on it, it can change, how you are. I've heard from multiple teachers out there that before they did this program, it was like cell block D out there. Like, it was just crazy discipline, behaviors like no other. And now it's like completely different. So they're kind of like looking at me like I'm the spoiled one, that I get to come into all this when all of it's, solidified and they're all perfect little angels. When a lot of them were there, when it was really bad and they got it up to where it was supposed to be. So if you guys have any questions or things that you want to shout out or whatever, this is your time to do that, and then I'll let you guys go.
I think one of the biggest things that I was like taking notes while I was listening to it, and there were a couple things that really stood out that I feel like I need to like remind myself every day, because like I hear it and I read it or I see it or listen to it and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense, and I need to implement that, but then I just like forget. Right. And I think one of the big things was the quote, "I am what I am today because of the choices I made yesterday."
Correct.
And so being proactive yesterday is going to make me more proactive today, and that's going to lead to a more proactive tomorrow.
Right.
And so it's a continuum, and like taking responsibility fully. Like,
correct.
Talked about some people have, if there's bad weather outside, then they're in a bad mood, and that's reactive.
Right.
Where people who are proactive, there's bad weather outside, but you're in a good mood because the way you react is created by your values. So you focus on that instead of focus on what's outside of yourself.
Right.
And then my last thing was the language, I think, is a huge piece of it. The no more victim language and using more proactive language, and like saying it out loud to myself. instead of just like thinking it. Like that whole like when you put sticky notes all over the place and reading them is one thing, but saying them out loud or like in the morning looking at yourself in the mirror, even though it's really weird, and looking at yourself and saying those things, it like becomes ingrained more in your actions and your brain and your thinking.
Right. Yeah, the weather thing was a big thing that I took with me too, because in my training she talked about that a little bit, and then she said that instead of letting the weather outside influence you, you need to create your own weather. So, you know, on a rainy, crappy day outside, you know, you want to look at yourself as like a ray of sunshine. You know, you want to carry that with you, because a lot of people around you are probably down because of the weather outside. It's just one of those natural things. Like you wake up and you see it's raining and you're like, you know, it's everybody does. It's just a natural response. And instead of doing that, you know, you need to create your own weather inside, because then the outside forces, the things that you can't control, are kind of shut away or, you know, minute. Instead of controlling you, you control how you feel, and that pushes your circle of influence wider instead of bringing it in. So yeah, I mean, rainy days and bad weather, and just when you just feel it, like Mondays, you know, like wake up on a Monday and it's just like, oh, getting back into the grind, you know, and, you know, trying to encourage yourself and push yourself to create your own positivity, your own vibes, and your own good vibes, and then radiating that out so that those around you start to feel it, and then you pick them up. So yeah, that's a good point, because I took that with me too that first day.
I was thinking about a lot of the like just being proactive and not reactive, because we talk about that a lot at school, or like I know this is gonna come in and do this thing, and I still let myself get frustrated sometimes and react the way I don't want to.
Right.
Or like we were talking about going to bed, like all three of us know we're gonna be tired in the morning if we don't go to bed. And we're like, all right, going to bed. All right, laying down, going to bed. And
Yeah.
11 and someone sends a message and we're still not in bed.
Responds.
Midnight.
We know we're going to be tired, or Erica and I are going to hit snooze and not wake up.
Yep.
Like, just knowing that, like,
Right.
I know it's going to happen, set myself up for success with it, and
Correct.
stop letting the other things interfere with it, because I know what it takes to be successful, and just be proactive about it and stop waiting till it goes wrong and then being upset and trying to scramble,
Correct.
whatever it is. So
Yeah,
that's
because I mean, you know, if you stay up late, you're going to be tired in the morning, and then when you're tired in the morning, you have more of a chance to not get up and get going, and then that in turn affects every single person that you come in contact with. And for us, that is 20 to 30 kids that need us. So
Sierra 100.
yeah,
100. Yeah, plus
20 to
everybody
30 at a time.
yeah, right. So if I'm tired, I'm like,
Right.
Right.
It's just
Yeah,
being
deal with
intentional with your actions and being intentional.
My class
in a
actually
positive
called
way.
me out for it on the second day of school, and I didn't work out that morning.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh, is that what your post was about? Yeah.
Yeah. The next morning, like, did you?
Uh-huh.
I've done 2 workouts since I saw you last. So thank you.
Much better mood.
Yes, but for next week, are you okay with him just kind of explaining that second habit to us? I think I am actually going to switch my PD, because I've just been doing podcasts, to be honest, and I'm still going to do the quick 100 Days of Brave, like little snippet, but I'm going to switch to the Slight Edge, since that's what the Emerald Push group is reading, to like actually read a little bit each night. And then with this book, I think I'm just going to look at the section that has to do with the habit, like on Sunday.
Yeah. And you got like, don't feel like you have to read it either. Like you can skim it, just kind of.
And if you have the Audible, then definitely just listen.
Yeah.
I did the Audible on speed 1.5, and you can still keep up with it, but it goes a lot faster because the guy just talks kind of slow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can still get the information, and it moves along a lot quicker.
Oh, that's good to know.
And you just pick out what.
Yeah, I was just picking out things I heard. Yeah.
I'm stick to Brave in this. I didn't get the Slight Edge.
Okay.
I couldn't find
I
it.
already had it on like a paper copy, so I'm telling you that I'm reading it, but we'll see how long I last with a paper copy book.
Yeah, I didn't want another book to read.
So, but now that I don't have a drive, I don't really have time to listen to a podcast either. So I'm thinking if I make myself sit down every day for a certain amount of minutes or whatever, then I'll get it done. Because I haven't been getting to my podcast because I don't have a drive. So, and that's when I did that.
I've been listening to my podcast and I don't know, with Palmer, I don't know your thing. But like in the morning, I like put it in my pocket and I listen to it as I'm like brushing my teeth or packing my lunch or whatever. So I can like, I don't know.
What do you do?
Zero.
Oh, we're still recording. We'll stop recording in case anyone wants to